To start the process of recrystallization, measure out your impure organic compound and decide what solvent you're going to use. So, measured it, we're going to add some solvent. Now we're going to dissolve it on the hot plate with just slightly more than the minimum amount of solvent that would dissolve the solute on a temperature that is near the boiling point. Of course, we do not want to hit the boiling point or else the solvent will evaporate and we will be left with the organic compound we were trying to dissolve. As the solution heats up, keep mixing it with a magnetic stirring bar or boiling chips. We're just going to stir it. And then we're going to keep adding more hot solvent to try to dissolve as much of the solid as possible. So once no more solid dissolves, that's when you know that the organic compound is dissolved and you're just left with the insoluble impurities. In this case, there are also soluble impurities that are dissolved and they're actually in the solution. So now we also want to add a 25% excess solvent to the solution because it's so saturated and it's very easy to crystallize right now. So we're going to add some more solvent.
Next, we're going to move on to the addition of charcoal. Charcoal is used to remove impurities by adsorbing other kinds of particles onto it so that when solution is filtered, the charcoal holds the impurities and does not go through the filter. Charcoal is also used when dealing with impurities that do not dissolve in the solvent, so it will not work for soluble impurities. Charcoal can work for colored, colloid, and other oily impurities. So when we take the solution of the hot plate and just cool it slightly and add the charcoal, then we place it back on the hot plate to bring the temperature back up to almost boiling. The next step is to gravity filtrate the solution to separate some of the impurities from the solution to obtain crystals later on. Use a powder funnel and fluted filter paper on an Erlenmeyer flask. We use the powder funnel instead of the steam funnel because the recrystallization process is sensitive to temperature, and if that cools, crystals form. The powder funnel has no stem for this cooling to occur and also has no chance of a blockage forming, which in this case would cause further problems. The fluted filter paper is used because many folds prevent the paper from touching the funnel. If we use a regular filter paper, the liquid would cool down from the touch of the funnel through the paper and therefore recrystallize before getting through the paper and into the flask. Other benefits from the fluted filter paper is that there is more surface area, which would reduce the time to filter and therefore the amount of cooling. We pour the charcoal solution in small amounts, keeping the solution hot by returning it to the hot plate. If we do not keep it hot, it could crystallize in the filter and we would have to rinse out with hot solvent.
Just imagine this is a hot plate.
So we can see that the filter paper contains charcoal with some impurities, and we can collect the solution that is not colored. If colored, we would need to do another charcoal treatment.
So after the filtering, the solution is left to slowly cool down and recrystallize. It could be put into an ice water bath, but that's not really recommended as impurities could actually start crystallizing. So it's better to just let them gradually cool down. If the crystals do not start to form, you might have to scratch the surface just underneath there. So although we are still left with those soluble impurities that are still in the solution, this solution is so saturated with the organic compound that the recrystallization will only occur with that organic compound, not with the impurities, because the crystals favor the saturation, and once they start forming, they keep forming the same compound. So now we suction filtrate the crystals in the liquid to separate the crystals from the solvent. So by now, lots of crystals have formed and are ready to collect. We use a Buchner funnel with regular filter paper and a flask plus, of course, the vacuum. The filter paper must cover all the holes and not go up the side of the funnel. Keep swirling the flask with the mixture and pour it into the Buchner funnel to get the most of the crystals. So you want to keep it, pour it, and swirl it, and get all those crystals, like as much as you can. If there are lots of crystals in the bottom, you can rinse out the flask with the filtrate there. The filtrate now contains the solvent and the soluble impurities, and we are left with some crystals. Rinse the crystals with the cold solvent to remove any last impurities or solvent. So let's rinse those crystals. And now we have a nice batch of crystals. So the last step is to just keep the crystals in your funnel and let them dry so that you can collect them from your sample bottle or whatever you need to do.